Good afternoon and welcome to Bruin Career Insights, maximizing your UCLA network. I'm Angela Scales, Senior Director of Bruin Connections and Alumni Career Programs here at UCLA. The Bruin Career Insights monthly series focuses on bringing you alumni and experts to discuss areas of career and professional development. Each and every episode is powered by membership, so a quick thank you to our Blue, Gold, and Life members for making events like this possible. Take a look at the live chat if you'd like to upgrade your membership. You can also use the live chat to ask questions all throughout the episode, so don't be shy. Our featured speakers today are Tiffany Chen and Rod Ponce. Tiffany graduated from UCLA with a degree in psychology, and after stints in finance and small business enterprise, she followed her entrepreneurial passions into real estate. In addition to her career as a real estate broker, Tiffany is also the Vice President of Programs and Events for Bruin Professionals. Rod graduated from UCLA with a degree in history and started his career as a financial advisor. He currently serves as an Assistant Vice President and Senior Relationship Banker at Bank of the West. He sits on the board for the Silicon Beach Bruins Regional Network, and he is the current Vice President of Chapter Development for Bruin Professionals. Tiffany and Rod, let's get started by having each of you share a little bit about your UCLA journey and how you got to where you are today.
Perfect. I guess I'll dive in. My name is Rod Ponce. I started UCLA back in 2002, and I came in a lot like many other students. I was pre-med. I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I took one class, chemistry 14A, and it ruined my entire life because I got the only C- I ever got in my entire life. So I said, okay, maybe being a doctor is not in my path. So naturally I said, well, maybe I'll look at doing the other thing. I'll be an attorney. So I went pre-law and did that. And when I asked my guidance counselor, he gave me some really good advice. He said, when I said, what major should I choose? He said, there's no real major at UCLA that really prepares you for exactly what you're going to do in your career, except for some very specialized engineering fields, nursing and what have you. So he said, choose something that you love, choose something that you're going to do really well at, that you'll excel at. And that's how I landed in history. So I did that. And then 6 months before I graduated from UCLA, I broke my parents' heart again. I told them I don't want to be a lawyer. And I got their blessing. I said I wanted to look at other things. And that's the first time I think I tapped on a UCLA resource for professional development. I attended a seminar at UCLA Career Center that dealt with financial advising. So I said, okay, this definitely sounds like it's more up my alley. That's not being a doctor or a lawyer. So I interviewed with a few firms. I became a junior broker for a firm out in Orange County. And that was up until about 2008 when the market crashed. And that's when I made a transition into banking, where again, much more exposure to the residential and commercial lending side of things. And in 2012, I accepted a position at Bank of the West. And right around the same time, I joined a group that I'd never heard of called Bruin Professionals. It was a UCLA group that I'm still currently involved in, and it's been completely helpful to my business. It's literally by just meeting a few of the right people within the network, it's quadrupled my business production, and I was able to identify a residential lending niche that needed service. So that's what I do. I'm an assistant vice president today at Bank of the West, and I specialize in standalone home equity loans and lines of credit.
That was great. Thank you, Rod. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Chen. I moved to Los Angeles from Fremont in 2006, where I started my undergrad career. And I don't know if this is typical of a lot of kids coming into UCLA, but I was undeclared. So it was a lot of soul searching and being a middle child, which is what I attribute a lot to. I just kind of followed my interests within the UCLA network. I took a bunch of GEs trying to figure out, where my interests lay, and psychology just was fascinating to me. I enjoyed learning about, what people think about, why they think that way. And, throughout my life, I found that in following my passions, it wouldn't steer me wrong. So I decided to major in psychology, but I always had an interest in business. I come from a family that's very entrepreneurial and very business and real estate focused. So I had gotten my real estate license when I was 19, not planning on doing anything with it. And during my first year, I actually met a friend from my dorm floor, I believe, who I found out was a member in Delta Sigma Pi, which is a professional business fraternity at UCLA. So during my second year, I rushed for DSP, became a pledge, joined as a brother for DSP. I know it sounds funny that it's brother, but it is. And from there, that's really where I got my grounds as far as what key interviewing strategies are, how to develop some professional etiquette. You know, we don't really learn that in school a lot. And unless you reach out to the Career Center or to alumni, it's kind of difficult to learn those things. So and that's where I attribute a lot of my professional skills to, being a member at DSP. And from there, you know, I decided it really opened up the doors in terms of tapping into that network for internship opportunities. I dabbled in wealth management, in tax, in wedding planning, even in just tapping into, I think, what's the, I think it's like the Bruin Professional resource where you go in the database and look for internships. Bruin View is what it is. I found those internships there, but also through the brothers in my Delta Sigma Pi network. And that was a great way to kind of figure out, more importantly, what I didn't want to do. So I realized that sitting in front of a desk, staring at a spreadsheet is really not my cup of tea. So I realized that I wanted to, you know, explore hospitality a bit. I worked at SBE, which is a hospitality group here in LA. And from that experience, realized that real estate was where my interests lay. Building a business, something more entrepreneurial, was really where my passion was. So I thought, what better way than to use my real estate license that I already had, and you know, that's really kind of transformed my life in being able to, you know, build something from the ground up, work with peers and people in such pivotal moments in their lives, and you know, that's. Now I'm also with Bruin Professionals, which I discovered through my real estate career too, because it is a very people-focused career where you need to draw on making sure you meet as many people as possible. We can talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah, so each of you touched on the role of Bruin Professionals and some of the things that you did as students. So when you had first graduated and you were thinking about how to tap into the network, what was the first thing you did? You know, before you got involved with BP and were thinking about that network, what are some of the first things you did when you realized that you wanted to tap into the alumni network?
The first time that I tapped into the UCLA network was really my third year in school at UCLA. I remember during recruiting season, so I guess in the area of finance, when I thought I wanted to stare at spreadsheets, you know, I had gone into, I think it was a career night that was hosted in Covell Commons. I could be wrong about the location, but it was just a huge room with a bunch of tables set up from different companies. So consulting companies, marketing companies, whatever it may be. There were representatives from each company in that room. And that was my first exposure to putting on a suit, bringing my resume binder, and, you know, just meeting people there. And so, you know, I was lucky that I kind of went through those awkward phases, at least while I was at school.
Yeah, I had much of the same experience. First real kind of UCLA resource I went to was the Career Center, as I touched on earlier. It was attending one of those seminars. I also remember during my final year of college, I did attend that same type of career fair. It was probably the same thing that Tiffany went to, where I got to put on a suit. I had to buy a suit, put one on, hand out resumes, have a portfolio binder. Had no idea what I was doing, and it was super awkward and kind of my first step into networking. But it wasn't until probably about 2012 when I joined Bruin Professionals that I started doing a lot more intensive networking and trying to reach out to a fellow Bruins to see how we could leverage each other's fields to do well on both sides. So it was probably late in the game. I was well into, decently into my career at that time by the time I had actually touched on a UCLA alumni group to get more involved. I wish I had done it earlier, actually.
So tell us a little bit about some of those early networking experiences once you were both alumni. Were they awkward?
Yeah, I'd say when you first start networking, it's definitely awkward. I mean, you get there. I remember specifically, I mean, when you're fresh out of college and again, it's my first suit I owned. I was young, inexperienced, lacked confidence, and you walk into a room full of 50 to 100 people that you don't know, and you try to stir up meaningful conversation. How does that even work? A lot of these people are more seasoned and senior to me, so definitely a lot of awkward conversations, and maybe that was the reason why I held off until a little further into my career to start networking, but to start really networking. But that was a big part of it. But it's kind of like a sport. You have to practice it, and the more you network and the more you attend events, the less awkward those conversations become.
I completely agree. You know, you touched on it being somewhat of a sport, and really networking is, you have to make a conscious decision that this is something you're going to do. No one enjoys being uncomfortable, and everyone is awkward when they entered the room. I remember the earliest networking experiences I had. Well, first of all, I would go there after work. So, you know, it was a whole day already. You're tired, you know, you're hungry. The last thing you want to do is go talk to a bunch of strangers. But I would just go to the bathroom, collect myself. That would be the first thing that I did. I would go to the bathroom, collect myself, and, you know, kind of battle those, that negative self-talk that you have. And you have to forget, okay, I'm not tired. I'm here to meet great people. They're going to have interesting experiences to share. I'm going to make the most of these next 2 hours. And you kind of just get in the mindset to go out there and meet people. Because what are you going to do? If you've already gotten there, you're already halfway there. The worst thing is not talking to anyone. That's worse than, you know, kind of struggling through a conversation if you're just standing in the corner by yourself. I think that's even more awkward. So I would just make a conscious decision to go strike up a conversation with someone else who wasn't talking to anyone. And if you think about it, you're kind of doing them a favor because they feel just as awkward and they're just relieved that someone, you know, came up to them to strike up a conversation. And I remember when I first started networking more professionally, I would attend a lot of young professional networking events, which were more casual, easier to approach people who are somewhat your peers. And, you know, from there, I remember at UCLA, once I started honing into that network a little bit, there was one event that I think the Alumni Association put on. I remember Sandy and Angela were both there. It was Money and Happiness. Professor Ravitch was speaking. And I think that was the first time I met them both, but they were both very welcoming. Thank you very much. As I continued going to other events, I think the next one was Dr. Salibi was speaking about networking like a pro or something like that. And I saw Angela and Sandy again. And once you just start to see those familiar faces, it really puts you at ease, I must say. And then it makes you more comfortable to approach other people.
Yeah, to add to that, the more you do it, the world kind of becomes a smaller place, right? You start seeing a lot of the same people, right? And whether it's UCLA, people that work for UCLA or other people that just like to network, it just becomes a smaller place and becomes more comfortable over time.
Most definitely. And I love the analogy of sports and just needing to practice. And the more you practice, the less awkward it is. And it actually relates to a great question that we got from an alumna when she submitted an RSVP for today. Lily asked, she said that she has trouble carrying conversation and feels like she always says the wrong thing when she's trying to network. So what are some of the best ways to start a conversation, and what are some of the topics not to talk about?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but my my strategy, and you have to figure out what works for you. But like I said, I go to the bar or food station because first of all, you need to get some energy to get through the night and be dynamic. So, and that's a great way while you're, filling your plate to just turn around to the person next to you and ask, how did you hear about this event? And that really starts the conversation. What do you know about this organization? If you're at a Bruin Professionals event, what do you know about this organization? Have you been to one of their events before? And that was always an easy opener for me. And chances are, someone would either not know about the organization either, and we would find someone who did and learn more about it. But it's a great transition into talking a little bit more personally about someone. And my go-to when I don't really know what to talk about is to go to this acronym called FORD. So that's an acronym for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So you just kind of pick one of those categories to discuss, like, do you have kids? Are you married? What do you do for work? That usually opens up a huge conversation that can last for at least 15 minutes, I would say. And recreation, it can be, what did you do for Thanksgiving? Did you travel for it? How was it? Even it kind of just becomes more natural, and you really want to be yourself in that way and talk to these people at a networking event as you would your people you're familiar with already. Just go to what you know. And people always love to talk about that. Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Ask questions and listen. People love talking about themselves too.
Yeah, to build on that, I would say be yourself, be genuine. There's no need to try to be someone that you're not. Your story and where you've come and where you've been to better than anybody else. Some of the FORD acronym that Tiffany uses is great. It's a great way to just start and spark some conversation. I think there's nothing better than travel, I feel like, as well. Talk about what places you've traveled to. If you're traveling for vacation anytime soon, that's always a great way to do it. And then also, of course, at professional networking, it's always a good idea to talk about what they may do for a living. Tell me more about, keep it open-ended. Tell me more about what you do for work, and let them build from there.
I love that. So each of you, has kind of learned different pieces as you started to network, and now you've gotten more involved with Bruin Professionals. Would you say that, how have you utilized the network at different points in your career, from when you first started to now? Has it changed the way that you network?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's definitely changed in terms of networking. Since I've been in the professional world, I've always been in sales or business development. So I'll be honest, when I first started tapping into the UCLA network, I was there purely for business. I said, what type of business can I generate and stir up for this so it could lead to sales and incentives for myself? But I noticed over time that changed a little bit. It started becoming more of a resource for me to have access to, so that I have, a much bigger Rolodex, if people still have those, of people and professionals to tap on, so I could refer clients to, family members, and close friends to. And I've done just that. Over the past 5 to 6 years that I joined Bruin Professionals, I've done at least 30 to 40 transactions with individual Bruins just within that network, and that's incoming and outgoing. This is being referred business, but also sending family members and friends to take care of things like insurance, investments, legal planning, and what have you. So it's been a huge resource. For myself personally, a couple of years ago, I even tapped on a Bruin who was a travel agent, to plan a huge portion of my honeymoon when we went to Bali. My wife and I, Rachel, we went to Bali for 1/4 of our honeymoon. We were traveling through Southeast Asia, and it was nice because for that portion, didn't have to plan anything. Lisa, who is our person that we dealt with, she saved us money and time with planning, and it went so smoothly for that portion of the trip, and that's invaluable.
And I love your answer, and it's very similar to what I had in mind too, in that in the beginning of my career, it really was about finding clients. And that's very natural of an inclination early on in your career, because it is about, okay, who's that next person who I'm going to help sell a house to, or help them sell a house. But as your career grows, you start to realize that there's so much more potential in these networks than just that. as Rod, touched on, this group of people that you are kind of developing become a great resource to your clients and your family and your friends and to yourself, really. And that's really how you provide value, or at least how I provide value to my clients. I want to be that person they come to connect to another professional, no matter what it is. If it's a plumber, if it's a roofer, if it's an estate planning attorney, maybe they need an attorney because they have issues with a noise complaint in the building, whatever it may be. And, you don't have to go any further than the UCLA network, because people are in all kinds of industries within the UCLA family. And the most value you can bring to someone really is in giving them a resource, and connecting people. It's not so much about what I can get anymore. It's about what can I give, because that's how the world works. The more you give, the more you get at the end of the day. And it's so much more fulfilling to come from it from that perspective, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah. And just one more thing I forgot to touch on, that, I think networking, and especially Bruin Professionals now, because it's become really my primary network that I dedicate most of my free time to. So it's a great way for me to develop my leadership skills. I'm always so focused on personal growth that it's given me a platform to develop my leadership skills, expand my network, practice public speaking, practice things like this where I'm in front of a camera, and just get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the best skills that you can really take away from experiences like this.
Exactly. And there's also resources to find, fellow Bruins in some of those different industries on UCLA One. There's a group on there that's a Bruin business directory. So if they don't know you, Tiffany, they can also go on there and specifically search for vendors in different industries. Before we move on, we got a great question in the live chat around asking at UCLA, what source would you recommend for connecting and recruiting students or offering internships? And that's a great place to utilize UCLA One. You can go on to our online career platform and post jobs and internships. You can also just email us in our office, careerprograms@alumni.ucla.edu, and we can post them for you, or we can help to get it out to students. So there's a lot of resources, but the first place to go is definitely UCLA One, and that website is very easy. It's just uclaone.com. So an interesting question we also got prior to today's chat related to the networking piece, and asking, how do you keep track of who you meet and follow up? When's an appropriate time to follow up? And also with the holidays coming, how does that play into it? Is there kind of an effective way to network, but also stay within those kind of appropriate boundaries during the holidays when people may be out of town or may not be checking their email as much?
I think everyone has a different system for how they keep track of people they meet. Within the sales industry and a lot of companies, we use what's called a contact management system, a CRM. And that's a very robust way of keeping track of people, in the sense that you add their contact, you add all this information about them, who their spouse is, who their kids are, when's the last time you spoke to them, and add notes. And that system will remind you when you should contact them again. That's a very advanced way that I don't think is very necessary if you're not in the sales business, but you can even just use the phone book on your cell phone. I would say you can use the phone book on there, add notes from your conversations with people so you remember some key information about them, because you're going to meet a lot of people, and that's natural that you can't retain all that information. What I also do is I live by my calendar. So in my calendar, I'll have on each day, like a list of people who I've spoken to, and I'll have every 2 weeks or every month, depending on who they are and how often I should touch base with them. It'll remind me when I should get in front of them again. And it can be a simple thing like just texting them saying, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you? It doesn't have to be an elaborate connection in any way or communication. You can even create lists on Facebook. I don't know if you've used that function, but on Facebook there are friends lists. So you can create one for Bruins, for example, and you have all these Bruins. You click on that list, and your feed will only show, posts from fellow Bruins who you've categorized as Bruins. So that's a great way to kind of remember people and just interact with them just within Facebook. With the holidays, it's actually the perfect time to network. So I love that people are thinking about that, because oftentimes I hear people say, it's the holidays, no one's really networking or working, but it's the easiest time to network. It really is, because there's so many holiday parties that you're attending or your friends are attending that you can glom onto, and that's a great casual setting and festive setting to really just meet people and develop those connections and get to know them on more of a personal level that may develop into more of a professional thing later on.
Yeah, I agree. I'll start with the holiday party. So absolutely, during the holidays, networking is the absolute easiest to do. Just go to the UCLA Alumni Association website, find a network near you, and find a holiday party. This is the most casual social setting to be able to meet someone without feeling awkward, because it's just so much more fun, and everyone's there kind of for the same reason and to socialize. So do that. So start there during the holidays, but also go in with a reason to go in, knowing that it's going to be hard to meet with some people during the holidays, but use that as a reason to follow up with somebody after the new year, to say, hey, we should get together after the new year for lunch or coffee, and then go from there. And that way, that you're catapulting yourself over to a really, really good start after the new year in January. With regard to keeping track of referrals, I use a combination of a few. Every salesperson knows CRMs, right? So customer relationship type of management programs that help you keep track and tabs of people you've met, when to contact them. I have a basic Excel spreadsheet actually that I use myself personally for contacts I've made. But even more so, that's easy and everyone has access to, is LinkedIn. Immediately when you meet somebody at a networking event, send them a LinkedIn invite. You never know, because you never know when that person is going to come into play in your life, professionally or personally. But that's just an easy way to stay connected. Just an aside, it's sometimes when I do a follow-up lunch or coffee, sometimes I forget who I spoke to, and LinkedIn is a great way to remember kind of who the person was and what that conversation was, because their picture's attached to it. So that's a much more helpful way than any CRM or Excel spreadsheet can help with.
Yeah, I'd love to add a couple things that I thought of while Rod was speaking, actually. He touched on, reaching out to people for, coffee or lunch or something like that. Honestly, that is really where you develop. That's really where you get to know someone. It's not really going to be the networking event where you met 20 to 50 people, whatever it may be. That's a very surface level relationship at that time. So best practices after the event is, add them on Facebook, add them on LinkedIn, make sure you're connected with them. The next day, send them an email. It was such a pleasure meeting you. Send them a handwritten card if you know their address from their business card. That's always a great touch that not everyone utilizes and makes you stand out a little bit more. Now you have different platforms on which you're connected to this person, and it makes it a lot easier for them to stay in touch with you, passively through social media, but also more actively if you're calling them, texting them, emailing them, whatever it may be. But it's a great way to kind of, at those lunches and the coffees especially, you get to know them on a very personal level and on a very professional level. And I kind of stay clear of asking for business, because at the end of it, after we've gotten to know each other, what we do professionally, but also who we are as people, because we're all people, at the end, I'll ask, what can I do to help you be even more successful in your career? Like, what can I do? Again, you're coming from a place of what can I do to contribute to your life? And they'll naturally want to ask you the same. So that's a great way to kind of balance that personal and professional level of an experience. And as far as the holiday party goes, we were talking a little bit about that. Actually, the way that I found Bruin Professionals was through their holiday party. It's the biggest event that we have each year. And I probably attended 3 holiday parties with Bruin Professionals over the years. So it was 3 different years before I actually attended one of their chapter meetings. So I didn't really know what the organization did, but it was such a welcoming and casual environment that I realized that I met such great people that I went year after year until I felt like I was ready to learn more. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that sometimes you don't know what you've stumbled upon until years later. Hopefully you're a little quicker. But, you know, with the holiday party, it was really a great way. And, you know, if you guys are interested in knowing more, just let me know, because we have one coming up again on December 10th, or just look at our Bruin Professionals website. It's a great time.
Those are excellent tips. And I love the tangible pieces of the card and, you know, what to say at the end of the lunch. Those are wonderful. A great question that I know we actually chatted about previously came in the live chat. So Kenji asked, when networking, I find that once you start a conversation, it can be difficult to smoothly roll out of it to meet others. Do you have any techniques for how to do so? Things that have worked for the two of you?
Oh, God.
Yeah. You want to start? Go for it.
Yeah, you go, Rod.
Okay. There's a lot of really great ways. There's the kind of the informal way, which works really well, and there's kind of a more formal way if you want to present yourself well. The informal way is grab some sort of distraction, to be honest. If you see somebody in the crowd and, oh, hey, I'll be right back, I gotta ask this person something. There's always the bathroom break. I'm gonna go grab another drink. Those are kind of more informal ways to get out of an awkward conversation. But if you want to go more formal, if it is one of those types of settings, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, it was really great meeting you. There are a few more people I'd really like to meet tonight. Shake their hand and then move on. That's kind of the more formal way to do it if you can't find a bathroom or friend or bar nearby, I would say.
Absolutely. And I am guilty of having used all of those strategies before. And, you know, really, I think the best way that I actually learn from other people while attending these events, because I'm terrible at leading a conversation, the best method that I've witnessed is really just seeing someone else who might be a good fit for the person you're talking to meet, and just say, hey, you know, I think it would be great if you actually met this person and introduce them to, you know, hey, have you met Rod Ponce? You know, he works at West, and, you know, I think you guys have a lot in common. Like, maybe you guys should meet. I know it sounds a little bit like a dating thing, but, you know, people don't construe it that way. And I think it's a good way for them to help facilitate them to make another connection within the party, but also to, you know, gracefully exit the conversation as well.
Yeah. To add to that, absolutely, that's absolute networking 101 etiquette. Is especially if you're talking to somebody just by yourself, kind of awkward to just leave. But if there's somebody nearby that you can introduce, that's a perfect way to get yourself out of it as well, because you can introduce that person. You've kind of done your goodwill thing of connecting them with somebody else, but at the same time, you're out of that conversation.
So in thinking about the networks that both of you have built, you know, has networking been a way also to find mentors? You know, can each of you tell us a little bit about the mentors in your professional life?
Sure. So I guess the mentors in my professional life really are from my profession. So it doesn't have too much to do with UCLA, although, you know, if I needed to do things all over and I were interested in real estate, didn't know where to start, I would probably just, you know, look to see what Bruins are realtors, and kind of ask them if I could take them out to coffee, take them out to lunch, and figure out if, you know, they have some thoughts that they'd be willing to share. And you'd be surprised, people are very receptive to that. As human beings, we want to help people for the most part. So my mentors in my career have been, well, my mom's a realtor, so, you know, I picked her brain a lot when I first started. But also my manager at my office. I was drawn to that office because of him, really. He was very calm, very collected. You could tell that he genuinely cared about people. And in business and in life, I've learned so much from him. And you know, he's the type of person who I would reach out to from the get-go. Anytime I had a question, I would ask him. But even within your office, you'd be surprised. You may think that even in a sales position that everyone is in competition with each other, but people do want to help you. So as long as you're kind, you express your appreciation, and you treat people with respect, you know, I would ask anyone in my office for help, and they were always very willing to do so. So, you know, the worst thing that can happen is someone says no, and I promise you it's very unlikely someone would say no if you ask them if you could take them out for coffee and, you know, chat with them about the career. And people like to talk about their successes and all of that. So even from this live broadcast event, I received a call, I think right before Thanksgiving, from someone who had RSVP'd and told me and shared with me that, you know, she kind of came from a very similar background to me, and wanted to learn more about how to transition into the career of real estate. So we're going to hop on a call, I think, in a week or two. So, you know, it's people want to help. So
For me, with regard to mentors, actually the first person that ever introduced me to Bruin Professionals is somebody who I actually work with at Bank of the West, but she's also a Bruin Professionals member. It's Deborah Gentz. I remember when I first came to Bank of the West, we had met, and in more of a professional setting, kind of discussing what we do and what we don't. And she said, "You're UCLA, you should really get involved with Bruin Professionals." And I had never even heard of the group, not even one tiny thing or ounce of even knew what the group entailed. But she said, you should check it out. And it's interesting, over time, I really grew in that relationship with Debbie, and she had become a mentor to me for a very, very, very long time. Within the, you know, she'd been in banking a lot longer than I had. But she really became a mentor over time. But as you kind of do your networking, not within just UCLA as well, I agree with Tiffany. Everything is a network, right? Your office is a network. Different other groups that you're involved in that may not be UCLA as a network, although the UCLA network is a very good one. So yeah, so tap into it. You never know. I know that also with regard to mentorship, more formally, UCLA Alumni Association has a formal mentorship program that you should sign up for if it's still open. Tap into your UCLA One, LinkedIn, find other Bruins. And as Tiffany said, I've never been turned down for a cup. Well, maybe I have been, but nobody really turned you down for a cup of coffee or lunch. If you say it's amazing the power of an email. That you send to somebody after you meet at a networking event, just to say, hey, it was really great meeting you. I'd love to learn more about your business and what you do. We should get together for coffee or lunch in the next few weeks. It's pretty amazing how receptive people are to that.
Exactly. Thank you, Rod, for that great plug for the UCLA Alumni Mentor Program. And you're right, it's still open. So students, if you want to find an alumni mentor, or just alumni to alumni, if you want to ask questions to someone in industry that you're interested in, you can utilize UCLA One to search by industry or by city or by major and ask them questions. So it's a great resource. In thinking about both of you and the leadership roles that you've taken in Bruin Professionals, and you know, Tiffany, you mentioned you went to a couple of the holiday parties before you got involved. What did that process look like, and how did you decide to take that involvement to the next level and, you know, take on a leadership position? What did that spectrum look like from when you first got involved?
Right. Well, when I first got involved, so it was probably, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years into my career. And, you know, I remembered, hey, there was this Bruin Professionals group that I really enjoyed meeting those people. And I thought, okay, I think I'm ready. And it's just like that. You know, you just realize that you're ready to dive in, learn more about the organization. And, you know, I just went to one of the meetings. You know, it's so easy to find information now. Like if you're looking for information, the power of Google is amazing. You just go on there, and I just typed in Bruin Professionals. I looked at the calendar to see when the next event was, and I just attended the meeting. And, you know, like any new thing, it was awkward in the beginning, but you start to identify, okay, these people are here to network. They are clearly very experienced, and I just need to get in there, talk to one person, talk to 2 people, and you start to build up that confidence. And it became very clear in that setting that, you know, it's a big group of people, and in order to stand out or in order to make a difference, I'm always a big believer in, if you're going to be part of a group, be a part of it in a high level, right? You're going to be spending time there anyway. So I decided, I think I was meeting up for like a coffee or a lunch with the president, Dr. Bill Salibi, to get to know about his business. And he asked me, like, are you interested in leadership at all? Because he started to notice that I was attending a lot of the events after I became a member. And just that showing up makes people realize that you're serious about it. And it opens up the doors to these opportunities. And I thought, well, I guess it makes sense to take on this leadership role because being a newer member, it would give me a way to get to know more people within the organization, have some kind of platform to contribute to the organization, and for people to really see what it would be like to work with me. Maybe they haven't worked with me, and seeing how I plan events or how I speak at different events, they get an idea for what I would be like in the professional setting, and they feel more comfortable about sending friends, family, clients to you. So,
yeah, I had much of the same experience. So, getting involved with UCLA and Bruin Professionals in particular came really quickly to me within a few months of just joining the organization. I was one of few people who got a business referral right away within just the first few months. Just you meet the right people, it was perfect timing, and I said, this is a good network to be involved in. I'm already seeing kind of the fruits of what this is, and so immediately I said I want to give back and I want to get more involved in leadership. I joined our chapter development team, which expands and grows our chapters throughout our footprint. And one thing that's funny is even though I did that to give back, I started to notice that the more involved I was, the more people were referring me business. It kind of came naturally like that because people naturally want to know you, they want to like you, and they want to trust you before they send you any type of referrals, of course. And that's where it really came. After meeting, I'll give a shout out to Eddie Neiman, who's been instrumental in developing my residential niche. He's a mortgage broker with Castle Funding. There's too much plug going on here, but he referred me a quick deal. It was the hardest deal to get done. But after that, he said, wow, this is great. I'm going to refer you all the people in my office. And then I started getting more business out of that. And then after that, the light bulb turned on and I said, well, why don't I just network with other lenders? And that's really how I developed a niche within the residential field is because of that, which all sparked because I started getting more involved with my UCLA network. So really, it could really just take that one conversation, that one person who you connect with, that's just the right fit. And you never know where it'll take you from there, I think, just because you're involved and you're around a lot.
So Rod, you'd actually mentioned early on that you had never heard of it. So just for that person watching that has no idea what Bruin Professionals, what would be that elevator pitch? And also, if they were thinking about dipping their toe in and learning about it, what would be the first thing that they should do if they wanted to check it out?
Yeah, sure. So Bruin Professionals, it's funny. So we have a mantra, essentially. We call it the 3 C's: commerce, camaraderie, and community. Commerce being the doing business, because business is better between Bruins. The camaraderie part is you really do build long-lasting relationships and friendships over time with these people. And then the community is really just kind of staying involved within the UCLA network and the UCLA community and our tie to the university. So those are kind of our 3 C's of why we exist. It's really to help build everyone up and rise together and lean on the UCLA network on a professional level. That's what differentiates us from the other regional networks and other social groups is because we really want to do business together professionally, if that makes sense, and grow each other professionally. With regard to getting involved, it's as easy as just going to bruinprofessionals.com, checking out finding out what the nearest meeting or event is nearby and attending. And as Tiffany alluded to earlier, the magic doesn't happen at the networking event itself, right? When you're having cocktails or over a lunch, you only get so much, or during your 30-second elevator speech, you only get so much information out, and you don't really get to know people. But once you've exchanged contacts and you've grabbed business cards, there's nothing more powerful than a simple email, and I can't stress that enough, just to say, hey, it was really great meeting you. We should get together for lunch or coffee in the next few weeks. And I've seen that become a really, really powerful tool for me to expand and maintain my network.
I love that. And we'll be sure to put the link to Bruin Professionals in the live chat, so anybody who wants to access it can just click right there. A great question we got in the live chat, and I'm just curious for both of you. Someone asked, what do you miss most about UCLA?
Oh, goodness. I think my mind always goes to food, so I want to say that the dining halls, I think I didn't take advantage of that enough when I was at UCLA, but that food was amazing. It's only gotten better. So but also just being on such a beautiful campus every day and meeting such like-minded people and diverse people at the same time. So, yeah.
I really missed, what I miss most? I really miss going to class, as funny as that sounds. Not so much to sit through lectures, but really just meeting new people all the time. Depending on where you sat, there might be a different person there the next time you attended that class. So it was always fun getting to be around that many people at any given time. I definitely miss that. But you do kind of have the opportunity to do that when you are a professional, because again, there are, and the point of this call is there are so many networks within UCLA that you can get involved with. It's just a matter of finding one that fits you. Attend a few and get involved, and that's going to be a continuous way to continue to meet people. And, since they're not going to be sitting next to you in a lecture hall anymore.
Exactly. Well, as we wrap up, we'll be sure to include both a link to that as well as to our website. As Rod mentioned, there are so many alumni networks. They're all accessible on the alumni website, alumni.ucla.edu/careers, and you can read all about the different networks you can get involved in. And as they mentioned, there is a holiday party coming up for Bruin Professionals. So if you've been thinking about getting involved and want to check it out, that's coming up in December. So we'll include some information about that. Thank you so much to Tiffany and Rod for being a part of this great discussion. Tapping into your network is always a hot topic for job seekers and professionals at any stage of their career. To everyone who's watching, thank you again for joining us and being part of this discussion. If you missed a portion of today's event or would like to share it with others, you can always find the recording and all past episodes in our series on the UCLA Alumni YouTube channel. And don't forget to send us your ideas for future speakers or topics. Is there a specific career topic that you're interested in? Shoot us an email. It's just careerprograms@alumni.ucla.edu. Once again, thank you to our Blue, Gold, and Life members for making events like this possible. We'll see you again for our next episode in the Bruin Career Insights series. Have a great rest of your day and go Bruins!